What's up, Alphas? Thanks for tuning in to this episode. I wanted to give a bit of background for this episode since it is a little bit different. This episode was recorded in the summer of 2025. Since then, Brad and I helped coach the Bishop Watterson football team to their second state title, being the first team in school history to go back-to-back as state champions. Pay close attention to this discussion so you can take the tools and the mindsets discussed to help you level up your life. Thanks again for tuning in. Now, enjoy the episode.
What's up, my Alphas? Welcome to Leading the Pack. I'm your host, Dom Clegg, a mental performance coach and former college football coach, dedicated to helping you turn your mindset into your ultimate weapon and help you become the alpha of your life. Now it's time to level up and lead this pack. Let's attack this work together. I'm super excited. As you can see, first time in person with my man, Brad McCurdy. So, Brad is an absolute brother. Went to battle with him on the field multiple times. We were high school teammates, college teammates. Brad is a state champion, a GLIAC champion, and a Cliff Harris Award finalist, which is the Small College Football Defensive Back of the Year Award. He has helped to make history not only at ODU, but I think he's the first person in Bishop Watterson history to win a state championship as a player and as a coach. So this is going to be something that's going to be really cool to dive into. Brad also takes all the edge of what he does on the field as a player and then as a coach, and he brings it to his job that he does for home energy consultant with Vestar Solar. So this episode is going to be really special, really near and dear to my heart. Welcome, brother.
I appreciate it, man. I feel like it's been like a long time coming, like trying to schedule this. I think, the whole in-person thing, it was just kind of, can we do it? Should we do it? I'm just glad that we're here kind of making this happen. It's been a long time coming. Again, that was probably the best intro that I've ever had. I've been around for 30-some years. That was, up there with the best. So I appreciate that, and I'm glad to be here, man.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. I know it takes some time out of the day to chop it up with the Alphas and kind of learn a little bit from you, learn about what your experiences are. So let's dive into it. I mean, let's go back to 2009, right?
Mm-hmm.
Forever ago. But you win a state championship with Bishop Watterson. What do you remember from the mindset, the locker room culture of that team that set you guys apart to set you up to win a state championship?
Yeah, I think the one thing, and it's funny you say culture. Culture it's a strong word. I think that year, so for those that don't know, Dom and I played at Watterson in high school, my junior year, his senior year, and it was kind of one of those things where we had a decent amount of guys in our grade that played when you were a senior. And, I felt like there was a foundation that was set in terms of what was expected, accountability. We made a run my junior year, your senior year, made it to the regional finals, obviously fell short against the Sales. But I felt as if, a lot of the guys in our class, we had a taste of it, right? And so, that whole off season, it was building a camaraderie, day in, day out, doing the little things. But it was a weird sort of sensation because, going into that year, we had expectations to make it to Massillon that year to win the state title. So it was a unique feeling. Not that we didn't have that your senior year and our junior year, but there's a process when you're climbing that mountaintop, right? And there were certain expectations and standards that, our locker room held kids to where, we were going into games and going into the season preparing to win a state title. And so with that came, accountability, doing all the little things that come with that. But our expectation was to win a state title. And we were kind of anticipating and being there, doing all the little things, that we had to in order to make that happen.
That's awesome. Yeah, I should correct myself. It was 2010.
I was going to say that.
I know.
I didn't know if you wanted to edit that out.
It's all good.
Yeah.
We're live. We're raw here. It doesn't matter. If we mess up, we own the mistakes. But in 2010, they won the state championship. 2009 was my senior year.
Correct.
So I guess you did take them back to 2009.
Yep.
And talking about that. But I love the mentality that you talked about of the belief, right? It started with the belief, because I would reflect back on when I was a senior, since we hadn't had very great years when I became a senior, except for like back to the last time we won in 04, right? When I was like in 6th grade or something.
Yeah.
The expectation to win instilled that belief, which gave you the mentality that it was going to happen regardless, correct?
Yeah, and it's one of those things that like you really don't know like until you go through certain, events, scenarios, right? Because you don't just become a champion or an alpha, right, overnight. Like there's steps to the process, and I think it was one of those things that like it was instilled in us. Like we had guys that played, right, with experience comes confidence. With confidence comes like mega belief to play fast and play physical. Like all of those things, like to your point, a successful team doesn't make it as far as, to a championship contender without belief. And there's things and steps in the process which I felt as if we were like engaged in, that we did all the right things, which put us in a good position to succeed.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it's I think you talked about the doing the work allowed you to have that confidence, which I think some people forget. They think that confidence comes from just talent alone, which obviously the team was wildly talented. Yeah. Multiple guys that went to Division I schools. Yourself went to a Division II school, top player there. Other guys that went to D2, D3 schools. But it wasn't just the talent. It was the fact that you guys were putting in the work regardless of that talent that I think really helps.
Yeah, and it's funny because, like, when you're young, you don't understand the little things, like, when you're in it. And it's funny, before I came on here, I was like, is there something that I'm going to be able to relate to Dom and that he'll understand to where it'll bring kind of a lot of things full circle? And I remember Coach Conley, and not to get ahead of ourselves, but he always stressed an importance on the little things, right? And that's not just, like, the thing I love about athletics in general, especially football, but, like, there's a lot of crossover into real life, endeavors. And so when we talk about doing the little things, like when, that discipline kicks in and doing the little things, confidence starts to build in whatever endeavor you're doing. And it's a constant, climb in terms of, discipline, consistency. With that will bring confidence in whatever you're doing.
Absolutely, yeah. I love that, because that was going to be my next point of how those two related. So winning in 2010 a state championship, and then 2013 winning a GLIAC championship, so the first Division II conference championship in ODU's history, and then making it to the playoffs there for the first time in school history for a Division II school, because we had just moved up in 2010 to D2. You touched on it a little bit, but I was about doing the little things. Was there anything else that was similar, or were there differences as well?
I think when we were in high school, there was a little difference, because in high school, it's a little smaller in terms of like numbers. And so I felt as if the buy-in was already there, right? When we were at Ohio Dominican, there is so many more kids playing, right? And so many more kids coming from different areas, walks of life. That's what made college special, was because so many different people were coming together for one goal. But that was probably the biggest difference. We had success at Ohio Dominican because we all bought into the bigger picture. And with the bigger picture came, cleaning up the field, cleaning up the locker room, like all of the little shit that like Coach Conley preached. Like we really started to buy in. And once we bought in, there was a crazy momentum train that like ODU got to experience. Like in general, it wasn't just the football team. Like that school really was on board with what we were doing, and I think that's how we, found that success. But more or less, I would say is, same kind of idea and principles for both teams. It was just, larger in numbers at Ohio Dominican for that buy-in.
Yeah. The thing when you talk about the little things, I think back to Coach Cook when he was our strength coach, and he would literally make us do worm watchers, right? Which is, for those that don't know, basically a plank, but you have to use your elbows instead of your forearms to do a plank. If there was one weight out of position, right? The 5-pound weight was on the 10, so that's 5 pounds. So then that's 5 minutes, I think it was, of worm watchers because it was 5 pounds out of place, right? The little things that you don't think about, that you think, well, this just goes back on the rack, it's good enough, right? But you're talking about a championship level standard.
Yeah.
And it goes back to those standards, which I think is awesome, that is related between both championship teams you're on.
Yeah, and it's funny, I remember seeing a clip of, Ed Reed, Hall of Famer. He would say when he was in the NFL in the locker rooms, he hated when guys didn't pick up their shit in the locker room. Mm-hmm. He'd hold guys accountable. That if we're trying to win a championship or contend to be a championship team, we have to do everything right, including the little things. So It's just funny because you take all that shit for granted when you're in the process, right? But when you're kind of past it, looking back at it, you're like, it kind of all makes sense on why we did that.
Yeah, and I think it's also you have for certain people, you don't actually have an idea of we need to do this because we're going to win a championship. It's just what you do, right? If you create it as a standard, if you create it as a discipline, in a overall culture as a team, if there's buy-in, right, people just do it because that's how it's supposed to be done. Mm-hmm. We're not going to question it. We're not going to really be like, well, why are we doing this? It's this is just what we do, and that's how you build championship level teams. Yeah,
I think, and I could spin this one back to you, but I think in what I'm doing now as a coach, I think as a head coach, that's kind of the biggest priority, and kind of obviously you want your players to quote unquote create the culture, but it's got to come from the top down. Mm-hmm. I'm just curious to get your thoughts on in terms of a team sport, especially football, the importance of that head coach and kind of structuring a culture or putting the kids in the right place to succeed for that to happen.
Yeah, I think there's various ways to do this, but the head coach has to be the driver, right? He's going to drive this and steer the ship and make sure that it's going in the right direction. But at the same time, a captain of a ship isn't going to be able to do everything that's on that ship, right? We think of Pirates of the Caribbean, right? The Black Pearl.
Yeah.
You can have the person steering it, and they're going to give you the guidance of where we need to go, but you need everybody else to know what their job is as part of that to drive that culture to the destination you want to get to. Mm-hmm. So you have to also empower those people, delegate those responsibilities, and I think that's where it comes in of if I'm developing my leaders the way I'm supposed to, I'm empowering them to carry on the culture that I know it takes to win a championship, well then that's what's going to hopefully be the end result. We can't always control the results, but I know if we don't live the standard that we're supposed to live to get to a championship, then it's definitely not going to happen, right? Yeah. We're basically limiting the variables to keep us from winning a championship by having that culture of high standards, of discipline, of leadership, of empowering young people to do what they need to do.
Yeah, and I think it's very important to note, obviously you have a bunch of gigs that you do, and I say gigs respectfully, but you'll come in and talk to our players at Watterson, and I think that's a great example of Coach Kennedy, who's the head coach at Watterson, where I help out at now, just kind of giving them that information to kind of use and apply in real life practice, etc.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to have voices come in, but I also think that it's important to have those outside voices that can relate to what you're already talking about, right? You don't want someone to come in, be preaching a completely different message, because as we know, high school, college, in a business professional, if we have a culture that we're building and we have someone else come in and say something completely different, now it's just confusing. We've muddied the waters. Mm-hmm. So I think it's very crucial, which is why I work with Coach Kennedy a lot on what are you telling them? What is important to the team? What are the guys struggling with that I need to touch on? And how do you talk about that?
Yeah.
And I will usually say it's still in my own terms, but then relate it to what your guys are already talking about, so that they can bring the two together. Because maybe it's easier for them to hear it from me than it is from what Coach Kennedy's saying, or they always hear Coach Kennedy's voice.
Yeah.
So they start drowning it out.
Yeah.
Well, hey, here's a new voice saying the same exact thing, maybe in a different way, and now you can actually connect the dots, and I help them connect the dots. So I think it's crucial to have that as well.
Yeah, I think it's awesome that you're coming in, and I mean, you hit the nail on the coffin. I think it's another voice for them to kind of relate to, and I think it's done wonders for the kids. So
yeah, I enjoy. I went to this morning actually. This is going to be a little delayed, obviously, when we put it out. But I went this morning in the summer to talk about one play at a time and making sure that because last year obviously they won the state championship, if they're going to repeat, or technically this is a new team, they're going to do it for the first time. But again, it's a one play at a time mentality. We're not going to go and look at the end result. We're not going to go look at winning a championship. How we're going to do that is by winning a championship one play at a time.
Yeah, I think it's important. It's just, especially when you reach the mountaintop, like a year ago, it's important to make sure the foot stays on the gas pedal, because at this point, right, there's no better place to be than where we are, where we know we're getting everybody's best shot, right? Like in life, in football, any sport, when you're at the top and everybody's coming for you, it just amplifies every sort of, variable in terms of discipline, accountability, routine, structure, relationships, like all of that. And I think, the whole one play at a time thing is like, okay, it's tunnel vision, right? It's this play, 4 to 6 seconds. Let me do my job. What's my responsibility? Where do I need to align? Who do I need to communicate to? What do I need to communicate to them? Like there's so many different levels to it, but like the one play at a time mentality I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and I think for the guys too is understanding that if we focus on winning a championship right now, again, that's not going to be until the end of November and December, right?
Correct.
That's a long time away. That's a lot of pressure to put on yourself when you can't necessarily control that result. So, let's lock in on the things we can control.
Yeah.
Winning today. Making sure that this morning's workout was the best possible workout possible, because that's going to translate later on. Like I said, you're just eliminating variables now, right? Mm-hmm. We're not worrying about, well, what if this happens? It doesn't matter if that happens because it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
We're focusing on the right here, right now. How can I make this play my best play?
Yeah. And it's funny because last Thursday, I think there might have been some miscommunication in terms of, Alpha coming in or not. But regardless, we still had the kids meet, and Coach Kennedy kind of went over the schedules and whatnot, but kind of opened up the floor for like a coach or two to say something. And Coach Steve Belisari, who's kind of been through everything, knows what he's talking about, it was like, we know where we want to be in December. In order to get there, everything that we want to accomplish has to be done right now. Because now is, pads are coming on, right? We're starting to hit. Everything's kind of coming together. School's getting ready to start. But now is the time to where you lock in to do the little things in order to get to where you want to get to.
Yeah, and I think where you talk about getting everybody's best shot too, that increases if you start thinking about, well, we have this game, then this game, then this game, then this game. There's 9 guaranteed games plus all the other ones in the playoffs. If we start focusing on all that, we added so many variables to this.
Yeah.
But if we are able to understand that we're going to get everybody's best shot, and that's just how it is, then we also know that our standards are what's going to get us there. Our standards are what are going to help us win games. Our standards are going to help us win the one play that we need to focus on.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
So we're talking about coaching because we switched over to you and coaching. So I'm going to skip over a few questions. You might come back to them later. But how has your approach to leadership evolved now that you're on the sidelines as opposed to on the field? Because on the field, you were a captain in high school, I believe a captain in college as well.
Yeah.
So how has it shifted, or is it similar?
That's a good question. It's really hard to kind of compare. I can always have perspective. I just felt as if, when I was a player, I was in the moment, and everything just came so natural. And I say that humbly with gratitude, honestly, because for me, I felt like leadership was a natural, God-given ability for me, to where people could gravitate, listen to what I was saying, right? It's unique now because obviously there's a different aspect in terms of coaching the kids, trying to come up with schemes, throughout the season, getting the kids in the right place. I don't know how I could, answer that at the moment. It's one of those things that somebody asked me this, and not to get off topic, but I won a title as a player and as a coach, and somebody asked which one I enjoyed more. One might think it was, the one as a player, but like as a coach, you see the bigger picture and you understand it a little bit more in terms of what it takes to actually win, because you're not in the process like the players. Obviously, with time comes knowledge, and experience comes knowledge and understanding of like what it takes to get to where you need to be. So I don't know if I can honestly answer that. I enjoy it leading as a coach more because there's such a huge impact on these kids with what we're doing and making sure you do it the right way, leading by example, right? I'm not sure. That's a good question.
I would almost venture, and I don't want to talk for you, but I would almost venture, because you've been through it as a player. One, the elation that you get, or the happiness from winning it, and now you've been able to provide that not just for yourself, right? Not just for the people you played with, and again, you have that bigger picture view and understanding, but you also now know that you've impacted all these young men.
That is a good point, because exactly. When I first started, and this was 3 to 4 years ago, I was like, I want these kids to experience that feeling I had in Massillon when we won a state title. And, I don't want to talk about the golden days of my high school football. Yes, has my girlfriend watched my highlights in high school 100%. But it's the biggest thing in these kids' lives at this point, and it's something that nobody can take away from you. And so, to your point, getting them to experience that, it's there's no better feeling as a coach to see the joy in these kids on the field. And it was funny because we're up in Canton, we're way up in the box, some of the coaches that are in the box. And we ended up stopping them on 4th down. There's a minute to go. All of the coaches up in the booth wanted to be on the field to experience that with the kids. We're running down the stairs, making noise. We're 30, 40, 50, 60 years old acting like kids. But that's kind of what brings, what's brought out of us as coaches is it brings us back to feel young. Yeah. And having them experience that, honestly, there was no better feeling.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember I was watching it here in this, right where we're sitting, basically, and I'm yelling at the TV. And I'm seeing people blow coverage, and I'm yelling at them. And my wife is like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, we're about to win this thing, but we got to stop blowing games. Yeah. Or blowing plays or whatever. Yeah. It was, I was getting super excited for them because, again, I know it's a different scale or a different, way of but winning the GLIAC title was the first time I won a championship since my soccer days. It was the only championship I ever won as a player or a coach, and to know what that felt like, let alone what it feels like to win a state championship, I was just so excited for those guys to understand and see the hard work pay off. Yeah, understand that everything they did over the summer, everything they did, and the adversity that would hit at different times, and they were able to power through it. That's not just showing them, yes, this works in football, but it works in life.
Yeah, again, the crossover that, these life lessons can teach you in the long run. It's, again, you don't necessarily understand it when you're in it, but us, our age, you see that as kids, and when they overcome adversity, it's you guys don't even realize what you did, but it's built into these kids. And that's kind of what made this group, and I think these next coming years, this group, very, very special. It's just, they don't even understand, the level of success that they're having, which is just, a beautiful thing to see and understand.
Yeah. I love that you talk about like they don't even know the level of success that they're having because again, some of these guys that's all they've known, right?
Yeah.
These sophomores and even really juniors, all they've known is winning their whole time. So let's kind of take it from the other angle though. How do we make sure that we don't get seduced by success, don't get complacent, don't become satisfied, and we stay hungry, we keep doing the things that got us here, and we keep attacking the same standard?
Yeah, I think there's a top-down effect. Obviously, it starts with, the coaches giving these kids opportunities to lead and lead these players and hold each other accountable. Because again, there's always some sort of process intact in making sure that there's no loose ends on our end. Like, we will let the kids lead and do all of that, right? But as long as us as coaches are kind of putting these systems in place for these kids to kind of consistently, do or like partake in, it's gotten to a point that like it's really hard to see these kids allowing that to maneuver their mental psyches or whatever. But like again, adversity hits at whenever and wherever. Will these kids need it? Maybe. But like, to answer your question, it's just sticking to the process, right? Sticking to the one play at a time mentality, understanding that, the state title isn't won, in one practice in July, right? It's constantly building over time. And I think this obviously would build into another conversation. It's just creating good habits. And staying disciplined to those habits, like plain and simple.
Yeah. I think and then that's kind of what I keep harping on this whole summer with everybody is keep attacking the process that got you there, right? If you need to build a new one so we can level up, let's do that for sure. Like we don't need to just stop and just go back to what we've been doing all this time, but like let's find a way that we can level up if we need to, but don't ever stop doing what you did. Do not lower your standards just because you made it one time. Right? Make sure that you understand that this is a new team. We might need to have new standards. We might need to level up. But we still want to attack the same process that got us here. And we want to make sure that we're carrying out those same disciplines, if not leveling those up.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things is that because we have guys that have experience, right, we understand that their knowledge is way farther along in the process than like when we usually start at this time. So what we're able to do, to your point, is like we're able to build on certain, play calls or what we're able to call, but the process and the habits all kind of stay the same. It's just we're able to kind of give them a little more knowledge day by day or week over week.
Yeah, I think that's crucial. Like also from the piece of leadership, right? Because like you have guys that have played, you have guys that have won a state championship. They know what it takes. So now you actually have guys in leadership roles that understand what that process was. They weren't just sophomores or juniors that didn't play, which again, nothing against those guys. You had a great team, so like not everybody can play.
Right.
But like you had guys that were juniors and sophomores playing that understand what it took to get there. Now it's right, you can empower them to be leaders.
Yeah, and it's fun to see like again, because these kids, like there were some young guys out there last year and like there's just, and it's almost instilled to these kids at this point. Like when we talk about leadership, like obviously there's different, rooms when it comes to the defensive side of the ball, whether it be defensive backs, linebackers, D linemen. Like we all break up into our own position groups, right? But there has been leaders that have kind of, risen to the top, and that's kind of been a top-down effect in terms of what's expected, like day in and day out. Like to your point, like these guys have gone through a whole season and a half, right? And so they understand, and so now it's just like holding these younger guys accountable as well.
It's bringing them along, which I think is really cool because I think back to a story my mentor Ben Newman told me of like when Jalen Hurts was at Alabama. He knew he was leaving. He was going to go to Oklahoma at that point. But a young guy showed up late. Was getting cussed out by the Alabama strength coach, as you would imagine, right?
Yeah.
Like as with
I've been there before.
Yeah,
I've
I've been there before too. So, okay, but being a young guy, you don't understand what showing up late means. You think like, oh, I just showed up late. Yes, I'm gonna get in trouble. I get that, but like you don't understand the bigger picture. But the fact that Jalen took him under his arm, even though he was leaving, he's like, this is not what we do at Bama. I feel like that's the same way now with Watterson of like, this is not how we do things if people are not living up to the standard. Because I was there today, and those dudes are playing team handball, and you're thinking again they're playing for a state championship right now. That's how the standard is.
There are some competitive dudes over there.
Yeah, they're going to make sure that everybody's competitive, right? If you're not living to that standard, people are getting called out. They're making sure that hey, it's go time. We're competing, and we're learning how to compete now, so that when adversity hits, if it does hit, then we're going to be ready to go.
Yeah. I just think accountability is huge, and especially if you can get – like it's different when a coach is holding a player accountable. You have a championship-level DNA culture when your players are holding other players accountable. Mm-hmm. Like there's a huge difference in that. And once you see like that for your own eyes, it's powerful stuff because these kids are really – engaging in like higher level IQ shit that they don't even realize. Mm-hmm. And that's a cool part or aspect of like where I'm at now and what's going on over at Watterson with like their culture and the success. It's been awesome to see for sure.
Yeah, I think what I related to is because I got the pleasure to play with your older brother Jason at Ohio Dominican, and they were great. Like those guys were amazing. They were great leaders. But they were coming in with a new staff. They're trying to learn the new staff while still helping us. I think by the time I got to my senior year when we won the GLIAC championship, we had a lot more team leaders as a whole, not just in the senior class, but like the your class and then even the classes below you. It was just almost instilled at that point, which is what happens when you're building a championship culture, right? Yeah. If you think back 3 years ago at Watterson, probably not the same type of leadership. There are probably guys that were leading. Even the year you made it to the state championship and lost to Toledo Central Catholic, I would think of Don Purcell as one of the best leaders in Watterson history. Yeah. But if I look at the rest of the team, the leadership beyond him was probably very little. Yeah. But because of him, other guys like Zach Weber, other guys like now Drew Belisari, have learned how to be a leader, and that has created that championship culture.
Yeah, it's just... It's fun to see from a coach's perspective. Like you talk about a guy like Don Purcell, and like I was like appreciative to be able to coach a kid like that because like I thought I was a pretty good leader, but like you want to talk about a kid that like here's how we're gonna do it: get on the train or get the hell off, and it was so contagious. And I remember, like, when he went down, there was, like, because he got hurt, I believe it would have been his either freshman or sophomore year towards ACL, and then he had to rehab. But he had gone down in practice one time, maybe as a junior or a senior, and I just remember, like, everybody's like, oh, shit. Like, he's down, like, what are we going to do? But to your point, Dom created a foundation now that laid for other guys to take kind of the wheel and kind of drive that team with their nuanced leadership styles. And so this is kind of long-winded. I'm not sure where we were going with this, but again, accountability, like when it comes from the players, holding other players accountable, I think success is almost inevitable at that point.
Yeah, because it's one thing when the coach is telling you, right? You know you should be doing certain things. Yeah. But it's like your parents telling you to clean your room, right? You know you should clean your room, but you may not always clean your room, right? But it's the same idea of like if your brother or older brother or whatever tells you like, hey bro, like your room's a wreck. Go clean it. You're more likely to possibly clean that room than if like your parents tell you. So it's the idea of like we're doing this together as well, right? Yeah. Like if you share a room with your brother, you guys clean it together. You're doing it together, and it's going to get done a lot faster, a better job. Yeah. Same thing with winning a championship. If we do it together as a brotherhood or a sisterhood for those
whoever.
Yeah. Because I mean, we talk about Watterson right now. Football state championship, a girls soccer state championship, a wrestling state championship, and a lacrosse state championship all in the same year.
Yeah, they're feeding the kids nothing but success over there. It's incredible. Like I don't believe there's any other team that's done I could be wrong, 4 state titles in one calendar year, school calendar year. it's impressive. Again, there's something going on at Waterston right now. Like it's contagious. There's great cultures across the board. There's accountability by the players, holding other players accountable. It's fun to be a part of. Yeah.
I want to switch a little bit to our business side. Okay. You have a lot of experience on the field as a player and a coach. How does this translate to business professionals in being able to make sure that they're living high standards, they're being accountable to what they're doing, they're getting, I guess, the results they want by attacking their process?
Yeah, I just think, with what we went through, especially at the collegiate level, it teaches you a little bit more about time management. Because when you get older, you have a job, there's so many, there's not just one thing that you have to accomplish throughout the day more times than not. It's compartmentalizing what needs to be done and when it's going to be done. I think time management is crucial, and making sure that you have some sort of process or a calendar to kind of structure your days. But in terms of leadership, when I was done with football, I pursued playing professionally and then kind of jumped at the first opportunity, work opportunity that presented itself with U.S. Bank. It was a 40 to 50 hour cubicle position. Wasn't really meant for me. And so I was lucky enough to get into a couple of different sales roles, right? And I think that kind of empowered me to find success a little more easier, because I think you've got to enjoy something or work that you're doing to at least a certain degree. I understand that a job is a job at the end of the day, but I think there's got to be some bigger purpose, or else you're going to get stuck in what's called the matrix, like going 9 to 5, really not enjoying any of the work you're putting in. Because at the end of the day, a lot of the times you're still building for something in relations to work, whether it's, your own company, creating your own podcast, right? Your own kind of way of life. There's got to be a bigger purpose or a bigger driver that kind of pushes you, but also helps you engage in work that is promising and fulfilling.
Yeah, I like how you touched on a driver or a purpose, right? Because I like to talk about hunger, right? You find your hunger, and it's the thing that's going to drive you no matter what, to constantly improve, no matter the circumstances around you. And I think that that's crucial. For me, it's providing for my family, right? And then it's also then I believe I have a true purpose that I want to inspire and empower others. That's what I want to do, and I want to make sure I do that every single day by maximizing it. So I think finding that, and it's going to be different for everybody. Some people, it literally maybe you want to have $1 billion house, right? I don't know. Which is great. If that's going to drive you for that time to show up as best as you possibly can, to do the work to the highest standard, great. But then that one's probably going to have to change, right? Once you get that $1 billion house, you're going to have to find something else to go chase. But if it's something that's more internal, it could be a driver for life.
Yeah, and I think, so for what you're talking about, you're more or less talking about maximizing, the impact on others that you have. Mm-hmm. Is that correct?
Yeah, making sure I inspire and empower as many people as possible.
Yeah.
And the goal is to do 1 billion, to inspire and empower 1 billion people. But that's the driver every single day, that even when I'm on the phone trying to bring in a new client, and they tell me no, right? Sales, that's not a great feeling to have.
No.
But understanding that, okay, cool. On to the next one. What's the process? Let's get back to the process. Let's maybe even look at the process again. But the inside drive in me, that hunger to make sure I keep impacting people, is what keeps driving me.
Yeah, that's a good point. I kind of like the way you worded that. It's never ending. Mm-hmm. And there's a process that's set in stone. But again, there's a driver to that, and I think that's crucial. Because it's easy to fall off, any sort of process if you're missing, or there's a link in the chain that's, not as strong. Mm-hmm. And so, I think it's crucial to have something that really pushes you for, a bigger picture or, bigger goal in mind.
Yeah. I think with business professionals overall, it doesn't necessarily mean you had to be an athlete, but there's a process to what you do, right?
Yeah.
So make sure you come up with that, but then also find why you're doing it. It doesn't mean that the specific job you have, right, for you.
Yeah, like just understanding like what I'm doing, what I'm selling. Like, I think like you gotta have obviously industry knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Like again, a lot of what I think we're talking about right now is like higher level mental understanding. But again, there is knowledge to be known and had in any industry, endeavor, whatever you're doing. Again, little things. There's little nuances in every business or endeavor or industry, and I think understanding that is kind of the most important.
Yeah.
Right? How you apply and utilize that information, I think it's different for everybody.
Yeah, because I think that like your job may not be like your end all be all. Like it may not be the only thing, but you might have a driver behind that. I want to create generational wealth for my family, or I want to leave a legacy that my family could carry on or would be proud of, right?
Mm-hmm.
That may not be the direct correlation to your job of like how you're doing that. Maybe you're not in like performance coaching, but you can still do that and carry out that hunger through your job and also the people that you impact while you're there.
I mean, I agree 100%. Like I could no more, no less. Like I think like
mic drop.
Yeah, mic drop. Like I thought you hit the nail on the coffin again. Like it's understanding the driver and what comes with that. And again, it's nuanced for everybody in their own lane, but I think it's finding a process that works and kind of running with it.
Yeah. As we wrap up, I want to maybe take you back to 18-year-old Brad, because you were 18 in 2010, right? So it'd be maybe we're thinking right before the state championship or even right after the state championship.
Okay.
Right? Give some advice of what you would say to yourself to let you know like where you're going to maybe be, or just something you needed to hear back then.
I think it's taking anything and everything one day at a time. Like, as soon as you get, twisted in the thought of what you need to do tomorrow or what you did yesterday, like, none of that really matters. And I think, like, living in the moment as you get older, like, I'm seeing my brothers have kids. I think one of, like, the biggest piece of advice I would give my 18-year-old self is live in the moment, enjoy the little things. Like, they go by so fast, like time goes by so fast. And I think enjoying time with the family, or even like really enjoying the work of the process for whatever job you have, it's one of those things that I don't think a day should be taken lightly. So enjoying the process, right, of the nitty gritty in which every day brings. So like I would tell my 18-year-old self, enjoy every day. Like, yeah, there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, there's going to be ebbs, there's going to be flows, but try to enjoy the day as best as you can.
I love that.
Yeah.
Maximizing every single day.
Yeah, 100%.
So thanks for tuning in to Leading the Pack. I hope you're able to learn from Brad and how he's able to perform not only at a high level on the field, but off the field in business, as a business professional. Don't forget to like, subscribe so you don't miss out on an episode, and make sure you share this person with someone who else wants to level up and lead their pack. Like I said, we have plenty more high performers that we're going to be bringing on like Brad to help you become the alpha of your life. So until next time, stay hungry, keep leading your pack. Now go attack the work.